What inspired you to make something like this?
Hard to put a finger on exactly what it was. I was working in the game industry when I began making the comic in my free time, and I had just bought an old house in an old neighborhood. So I was starting to become fascinated with the history of this area. I was listening to a lot of jazz and jazz revival and swing music at the time, and I had all these cat characters that I had drawn through my middle school and junior high school years in my notebooks and things. And for some reason, I couldn't even explain to you. They all kind of like congealed into this one thing. So it became a 1920s era prohibition gangster themed thing with cats and jazz music. So
How long have you been drawing stuff?
I've been drawing since I was a little child, longer than I can remember, really. I know my parents tell me they could always just sit me down with a box of crayons and some paper, and I'd just entertain myself for hours that way. Um, I have very hazy early childhood memories of drawing like ducks and horses and things, cats, and then it eventually drifted into dragons and animal characters, anthropomorphic characters. It's been a long time. More
Yeah.
than 20 years.
Was it a point when you started getting more serious about it?
Well, I when I started getting more serious about art, I think probably around the end of high school, I had been drawing just kind of to entertain myself up until that point, and didn't think I could make a career out of it. I had a family that, well-intentioned as they were, told me that I could not earn a living as an artist. So it never kind of occurred to me that I could until it started coming time to apply for college and university. And um, I ended up going to school for biology instead because of the protestations of my parents. And while I was there, I put together my first website, and I was spending all my lecture time drawing through class anyway. So, and around that time, I started doing freelance jobs and things. And I eventually got a job offer several states away from where I lived to join a artist team at a small game developer. So rather than kind of waste my time studying biology any further, I took the job offer and just kind of moved on into an art career without the schooling part, for better or worse. I kind of learned on the job, and here I am now. So.
Are there any specific people you look up to when it comes to art, or is it all just coming from within?
More than I can, more than I can really name. I mean, art doesn't formulate in a vacuum. So I mean, every
Yeah.
artist has influences, whether a combination of, unconscious and conscientious ones. I was definitely really into Bill Watterson's Calvin and Hobbes as a kid, which is, I hear a lot of comic artists in my relative generation say the same thing. Very popular comic that I think influenced a whole lot of us.
Yeah.
I grew up watching things like Looney Tunes and The Simpsons, and I think probably my sense of humor came from that arena. And then in terms of style, it's kind of all over the place. So many different artists. I was very obsessed with the pre-Raphaelites for a long time. I really loved the use of natural light and the hyper realism and the detail, lush colors, and I think that probably came through in a lot of my work, even though I'm drawing something very, very different. I'm drawing like bug-eyed cat characters with with fedoras on, but I guess some of those things kind of transferred over into my approach, because I do like to fill everything with illustrative detail.
There's like
So yeah.
insane amounts of detail. So like, how long does one page take you to make?
Too long. I think it takes when I add in things like research and writing and thumbnails and layout and all the pencil work that goes into it, and then all of the digital work that goes on top of that, it's probably takes me about 3 weeks of work to put together a page. Granted, my pages are longer. When I say a page, I'm saying a page is usually 2.5 to 3 book pages when it all comes out in print. But when I post it on the website, I tend to put multiple pages together. So it's quite a lot of panels. But still, I'm outpaced by a lot of comic artists who update a lot more frequently than I do. I like to take my time with the art. And so there's always a trade-off. You're always compromising between doing the best art you can and telling the story as effectively as you can. And
Yeah.
there's an art form to finding that happy medium place between those things. I think I have skewed a little too far over into the spending too much time on the art part of that. But so far, my readership has been patient with me, so I'm grateful for that.
Yeah. How long do you think the story will go on?
I had initially planned 4 volumes, but I found out the hard way when I released volume 2 that I had made it much too long because it turned into a book that's very heavy and difficult to ship. Shipping costs, especially overseas, because it's such a heavy book and large book, is very prohibitive. So it was kind of self-defeating as it turned out. So I think going ahead, I'll probably make the volumes shorter than I had initially intended. So it's looking probably more like 5 or 6 of them. I haven't quite recalculated exactly where I'm going to split things up yet, going further off into the distance, toward the end of the story. So somewhere between 4 and 6 volumes. My second volume was twice as long as the first one. So I think with the first one, I was probably closer to the ideal length, and then so I'd say I'm about, I guess, 40% through the story, 45%.
The name Lackadaisy, where does that come from?
Well, the word kind of denotes a certain sort of like lassitude or laziness even, but the original meaning of the word lackaday was kind of an expression of remorse and regret. And kind of a theme of the story is a lot of the characters are kind of living in the past and trying to relive the past, or trying to get back something that they loved about the past. It's a little bit of a nostalgia trip for them. And so I think that combined with that sort of bittersweet nostalgia, combined with just kind of a silly sounding name for a speakeasy, seemed like a good idea to me at the time. And it seems to have been kind of a title that worked pretty well. It's not too difficult to spell, and the word, it has kind of a rhythm to it. So I think I could have done worse with a title. It's a little quirky, so maybe it's easy to remember. Who knows?
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool. I like the backstory to it too.
Thanks.
I'm gonna call it Mafia Cats. I hope you don't.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah.
When did you launch Patreon?
I launched a Patreon in spring of 2015. I kind of I left my day job about a month before that, and kind of just leapt into the abyss and hoped that I'd be able to float and remain aloft in some way. And Patreon came through very well for me, so that worked out. And I'm very grateful, because I'd been doing the comic for years and years before that without really earning any money on it. And then suddenly I asked the readership, like, if you help me out here, I can do the comic full time, and that seems to have gone well. So I can't complain. I don't know what possessed me to think that I could just leave my day job and do a comic full time, but I'm glad I did.
Is there
kind of a little bit like leaving college to take an artist job. It was it feels uncharacteristic for me. If I were to analyze my own personality, I'm more of a careful person, but every now and then I guess you just have to take a leap. So
are there any like difficulties you arrive at when you're working with it?
Constantly, yeah. It's kind of a pile of difficulties making a comic. Part of that is why it's challenging and fun, but it's also agony at points. There's writing is always difficult. Self-editing your own writing is tricky. Some of the research that is called for, the information is obscure and oblique and difficult to find. And so sometimes I end up going down the internet rabbit holes trying to find little tidbits about historical accuracy and such. Sometimes I have to fudge it a little bit and try to get it as close as I can to be as historically accurate as I can, while still populating this world with cats. That part's not exactly historical, but the rest of it I try to keep it more or less in line with actual 1920s history. the art itself can be pretty grueling. There are points where I really just enjoy the process. I enjoy penciling, but then there are parts of it that are, you know, that uh, make my hands ache because I'll be sitting there for hours at a time, hunched over a Cintiq, doing all the value and toning and everything on each page. And then of course there's the kind of the equivalent of stage fright of publishing each new page and knowing that I took so long to produce it. I sure hope I'm not going to disappoint everybody when I post this. You hope for it to be entertaining and to move the story forward in a satisfying way, and for the art to be visually appealing, and trying to get all of those things, hitting on all sixes is a difficult thing at each turn, and feeling like you need to kind of up the bar for yourself every time. So when you're publishing a story like that incrementally, the need to perform at your best all the time, or to even exceed your best from the last update is always there. Whether I wouldn't even say the readers put that pressure on me. It's just something I do to myself. I think a lot of artists are like that, perfectionists, but
Yeah.
that's certainly one of the things that I lose sleep over.
Yeah. How much do you sleep?
Um, I have an awful sleep schedule. It depends. Some nights I sleep probably 4 hours, and some nights I get a full 8. But usually toward the beginning of the month, I can catch up on sleep a little bit, and then as I'm scrambling to get my updates finished for the end of the month, I'm losing out on a lot more sleep. So so it varies depending on when you're speaking to me. I may or may not be more or less coherent toward the toward the end of the month as opposed to the beginning. So, and then I'm up at all hours of the morning. I tend to find it easier to work when there's no distractions and it's 2 or 3 a.m. It's quiet. There's nothing on TV. I can just focus on what I'm doing. So
Yeah. I think that was most of it. Do you have anything else that you might like to add?
not really. I'm just really honored that you decided to do a Lackadaisy read through for this event. I'm curious what made you choose that. Um,
I read your comic like way back at some point, I think, and I really liked it. So it was like, I need to do this. Uh,
oh well, thank you.
yeah.
How many people do you have joining you?
We have Chipflake, and there's Blue the Dragon, and there's Seth. So there's 3 other people.
Okay, awesome. So
Yeah.
you guys are just gonna split up the roles
Yeah.
kind of
Just
evenly, or
hope for the best.
okay, okay.
Yeah.
Well, this will be interesting. It's kind of like the jazz version of voice acting, where you just have to improvise along the way, right?
Yeah. How do you feel about animals? It seems like you.
Oh yeah, I love animals. I ever since when I like I was explaining, when I was a kid, pretty much everything I drew was animals of some kind, and I've always, I guess, really enjoyed the company of cats and dogs and everything, and I empathize with them perhaps more than I do with people at times, for better or worse. I think a lot of us have that problem, but yeah, when it comes to charity, I like to give to a lot of different causes, but certainly pet rescue and shelters is my main focus.
Yeah.
And so I like to help out. There's so many different things and causes that are in need, but it's our heart just goes in the direction that it will. So
Yeah.
so I've got a cat sitting on me right now purring. I don't know if you can hear him.
I really appreciate it. It was very cool to get to talk with you.
Likewise.
Yeah. I hope
All right.
you have a good night.
Okay. I hope you have. I guess it's probably morning there. So
Yeah.
have a good morning, and
Thank
I
you.
will talk to you again soon.
Hey. Bye bye.
Bye.